Adam Fantilli scores his first NHL goal. We'll compare him with what Leo Carlsson has done in his debut for the Anaheim Ducks. Then we'll end things off with some talk about some 2024 NHL Draft eligibles, all coming up on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi joined by Sebastian. And on today's episode, we'll talk about Adam Fantilli's first NHL goal. We'll compare that with what Leo Carlsson has been doing in his NHL debut so far. Played one game and looked really good in it. We'll talk about that in just a sec. And then in our third segment, we'll update you on two 2024 NHL draft eligibles that we've watched recently in Artyom Levshunov and Maxim Massé. Before we get into any of that, just remember to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always very much appreciated. So let's get things started, Sebastian. Let's talk about Adam Fantilli's first NHL goal. It was a beauty. His teammate got the puck in the offensive zone. Fantilli did a really good job of staying right in between two players and playing in between checks. The puck came in quick to him. He was able to take a touch, settle the puck in front of him, and just rifle it pretty much on sight right into the top corner. Celebrated hard as well. I was really proud of that one. What's impressed me with Fantilli so far is just the fact that, he's been playing relatively well in limited minutes. But he's always been the kind of pick where it's an investment. You're waiting for him to develop later on, right? I mean, we're not looking at there's a difference with Leo Carlsson there, right?
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Leo Carlsson plays a far more refined brand of hockey. The reason that I think Fantilli was ahead on so many draft boards, ours included, than Leo Carlsson at the 2023 NHL Draft, is that the skills that he demonstrates are often quite chaotic and still in need of refinement, but are demonstrative of this really quite high-end ceiling there. And while, yes, when you had the Fantilli-Michkov debates, Fantilli was kind of the default, NHL-ready player in that debate. Mm-hmm. Both players are quite chaotic stylistically, and Carlsson just isn't quite that. He plays a bit more of a simple style of hockey that's already a lot more kind of suited for the NHL style. He is able to layer a lot of professional habits into his shift by shift play already. Whereas Fantilli is still learning those gritty details. And I think that Carlsson's year in the SHL last year really gave him that extra step above Fantilli in terms of just the comfort that he'd be able to have playing against NHL competition and NHL styles of play. And with Fantilli, I think that will come. But to start their NHL careers, I definitely think that Carlsson's shown a bit more comfort. But I think with Fantilli, with time, he might be able to show a bit more flair than Carlsson is. So it'll be very interesting to see how these two players continue tracking. But both players to start their careers have impressed in very different ways, in my view.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the same here. I feel like Fantilli and Carlsson are fundamentally different players. Fantilli's, like you said, is a bit more chaotic, but also a bit more kind of finesse to his game, a bit more offensive of offensive ability and a lot more intensity to his game than Carlsson. There's a bit more of a calculated kind of processor. Understands how to let play develop, which is something that Fantilli still needs to learn, and that's why Carlsson in his NHL debut looked a lot more like an NHL player. I see a lot of Anton Lundell in Leo Carlsson, just the advanced understanding of the game, the predictive element to his game, but obviously a better skater than Lundell. Lundell is still to this day a below average NHL skater, but he impacts the game through his brain, and that's what makes his game tick. And it's a bit of the same for me with Leo Carlsson. The way I see Adam Fantilli developing is wildly different than the player that Leo Carlsson is going to be. I mean, Leo Carlsson, you've got him right now, and you know already that this is basically what you're getting in the future. You're getting a really good top six center who can impact the game in all three zones, who can carry the puck up the ice, who can make smart plays in transition. With Fantilli, you're getting a run and gun, potential top line player, potential franchise player who's going to wreak havoc in the offensive zone on the forecheck, win pucks back, cycle them well, find space in the offensive zone. They're fundamentally different players, but for me, it's just if we're talking 5, 6, 7 years down the line in both of these players' primes, who do you take for a game?
Again, I'm still siding with Fantilli. I think a couple NHL games isn't going to overturn the decision that I made last year in the draft
Yeah,
class. That said, I do see the two players as closer now than I did a couple months ago. So I do think that Carlson's development is catching up a little bit with Fantilli's over the last maybe 6 or so months.
yeah,
Uh, that said, it we'll see. Like it depends largely also on how both players are developed with their respective organizations, and I doubt that Anaheim is going to regret their selection anytime soon.
yeah,
Maybe far in the future, but either way, because the players are also so different, they bring different value, right? It's not a thing of whichever player here scores more points in their careers will end up being more impactful. I don't think
exactly.
that will actually be a measure of their careers. Where because I think that Fantilli probably will score more points than Carlsson, but there's definitely a world where Fantilli gets those points, but Carlsson brings more impact to the game.
Mhm,
But to bring it back to Fantilli one last time here before we talk about Carlsson for an entire segment,
mhm.
I've been quite impressed with seeing the amount of things he's been attempting at the NHL level. Like, there's definitely been plays that he hasn't been able to execute on, but he's taking challenges on. He's not too afraid to try things,
Yeah,
and so far, Columbus is giving him free rein to do so. And while that has not translated to him being the most NHL effective player immediately, I do think that in the long run, it will help him to build that greater skill base to potentially truly dominate this league. And
yeah,
with Leo Carlsson, he's already a comfortable fit on that top line with Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras. He thinks the game at their pace. He's able to complement them very well off puck. He brings an element that they do not in terms of the physicality, in the defensive awareness, and the overall offensive profile as a power forward.
yeah.
So with him, I think that if we're looking at potential like rookie breakout seasons, I think it's more likely going to come from Leo Carlsson than Adam Fantilli at this stage.
Yeah.
But with Fantilli, I really, really am a big believer in his skill. I just do believe that's going to take him maybe 2 or 3 years to get as comfortable as Carlsson may already be as a rookie.
For sure, absolutely. And I mean, he's technically in the top 10 for scoring right now among rookies, Fantilli with 2 points in 5 games. Tied with multiple players, but still, I mean, it's not like he's being kept off the score sheet entirely. And on a Columbus Blue Jackets team that is giving him free reign to kind of play his game, to do what he needs to do, and to explore new areas. I mean, we talk about this a lot, but exploration and risk taking is the best way to develop new tools in your game and understand what works and what doesn't at a new level. A lot of the players who default to simple plays when they reach a new level, or kind of play it safe, tend to more often than not really explore their game and develop as quickly. So I think that the development curve for Fantilli is going to be steeper than it is with Leo Carlsson for sure. Um, but at the end of the day, I mean, Fantilli's in such a great situation in Columbus where there's no pressure. He can do what he needs to do. He can learn. He can learn on the fly. He can explore what works and what doesn't. Um, I'm I'm fairly confident in Fantilli's ability to become kind of the superior top line center. But NHL impact is so volatile and it's based on so many different variables that it's difficult
Yeah.
to kind of draw a line in the sand between these two guys. And I think that's going to continue to be a discussion well into their primes as to who is better. But this is going to be an exciting couple of years as we see these two guys develop. It's going to be very interesting to see him go about it. We'll delve more deeply into Leo Carlsson's game in the second segment coming up. But first, a quick word from our sponsors over at Sleeper.
Sidney Crosby scores a hat trick. Your team wins the Stanley Cup, and you win 100 times your money. These are all possible scenarios for this season if you join the Sleeper Fantasy Hockey app. With studs like Connor Bedard, NHL rookie, or as we're talking about in this episode, Leo Carlsson, Adam Fantilli in the league, the NHL is more exciting than ever before. And you can add your own dose of excitement to that by playing daily fantasy hockey with the Sleeper app. Simply follow common stat lines like goals, assists, points, hits, plus minus, and more in order to create the best stat line for your week playing fantasy hockey. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details.
All right, so moving on to our second segment, we'll be talking about Leo Carlsson more in detail and how he played in his first NHL game. So I believe he was held pointless in that game, but played
He
a
was.
really he was
No,
he played a,
he scored. He scored in his debut, actually.
did he?
Yeah,
Did
and he
he now?
almost got an assist too. He's great.
Oh,
He was
that's
excellent.
fantastic.
Oh yeah, he was
Abs-
really good. He was
Absolutely.
really, really good.
Yeah, I mean the stat line showed, according to Hockey Stat Card, he was a top 4 impact player on the Anaheim Ducks in that game.
He looked it
And
too.
it had a really positive impact on the game. Other than in the face-off dot, he was really, really solid in that match.
We
And
don't talk about the face-offs. Didn't
yeah,
happen.
no, they did not happen. Nothing happened there. But yeah, I mean, take it away on Leo Carlsson. What was your kind of first impressions on him throughout this game? What did you like that he did well? And talk me through the goal that he scored as well.
Yeah, Carlson looked confident and comfortable throughout the game. He looked the opposite of an NHL rookie playing his first ever game in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Very, very, very comfortable with the puck on his stick, making quick decisions in possession, supporting teammates really well off puck. He scored his goal on a 2-on-1 where he recognized the play pretty quickly and just sprinted up the ice off puck. Positioned himself very, very well to give Troy Terry a chance of completing the pass to him, and just comfortably slotted it home in the top left corner of the net. And yeah, it was a very, very good play. Earlier on in the game, he had a play which I thought live was actually a primary assist, but I'm not sure if he actually touched the puck. But either way, he was creating chaos by the net front, and overall, he was making himself known, and he was having an impact whether the puck was on his stick or not. I thought his defensive play in his own zone was solid but unspectacular, which demonstrates like some progression from last year. Like I don't think I've ever been quite as high on his pure in zone defense as other scouts have. But he's looking good defensively already. I thought that his reads were solid and consistent, but I didn't see the level of aggression that I would love to see from centerman in the defensive zone. Sure. That said, it was a very, very strong debut, and among the 2023 NHL drafted players, so far, I think in the NHL, he has impressed me more than anyone not called Connor Bedard at the NHL level. I think even if you compare him with a player like Zach Benson, who's creating a lot of advantages consistently, a couple games into their NHL careers, Leo Carlsson looks like he looks like a first liner already. And if that regresses to a second liner as an NHL rookie, that's very impressive. So yeah, Leo Carlsson's off to a fantastic start, and I'm very excited to see how it continues for him, because Anaheim's creating a pretty fun team there, and with players like Pavel Mintyukov and Leo Carlsson starting to make impact at the NHL level and scoring goals so far this season, yeah, lots to be excited for there.
It's unfair. I mean, it feels like every year they add two rookies that just slot right in their lineup and play really well. So
Zellweger's next.
Zellweger's next. We already have, I mean, Mason McTavish, Trevor Zegras a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like every year they manage to add a couple of young guys in who really fit their system, fit the way that they play, and understand how to create offense on that team. And it's so impressive to watch the Anaheim Ducks go about the rebuild, because I feel like every pick is logical. Every pick they make in the draft fits a certain purpose, fits a certain kind of blueprint of how they're trying to build their team and how to move forward. And that is so important when you're trying to rebuild as an NHL team, is just to have a clear cut kind of understandable objective for yourself in the future. So they're really off to a good start, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Leo Carlsson slots in there, because I think that I mean, we're definitely talking about a first liner within the near future, right? I mean, I don't think it'll take more than 2-3 years before Leo Carlsson's playing full-time first line minutes. Do you agree on that?
I mean, he already is technically. I
Yeah.
mean, 2 games into his NHL career, he's averaging over 20 minutes a night. So
Yep.
he's definitely on track for it. I know that in this first game, he took that top line spot because Adam Henrique was out of the lineup.
Mhm.
But I think he should probably keep it from what I've seen so far. But we'll see how it progresses. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Leo Carlsson's he was always a very, very comfortable top stakes projection,
Mhm.
and that has not changed. And as for the top line upside, I can definitely say I'm more confident about that now, having seen him excel in a top line role
Mhm.
to start an NHL season than I was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's always nice to see prospects, no matter where their draft slots are, just progressing steadily after their draft year seasons. And Carlsson looks better in the NHL than any viewing I had of him last year, which is already great news.
For sure. I mean, other than that 11.1% face-off percentage, I mean, that's something to work on, but
We don't
overall,
talk about the face-off, Don. Okay, this two NHL games, Hattie. Come on, you're nitpicking for details.
I mean,
He's like a point a game
no,
goal.
listen. Listen. He's
Uh,
got a goal in 2 games, but
yeah,
11% in the face-off dot that needs to change. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, that's
He has one face-off win, right? Like I think he has one.
yeah. I think it won
He
1 out of 9 face-offs he took.
and that was all the first game. He took no face-offs in the second game. That was entirely the first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, certain things are going to take time to develop,
Mhm.
and certain pro habits, I mean, face-offs especially, just take reps. Like you
Yeah.
just got to keep trying, and
Yeah.
you rarely see like 18, 19, 20-year-old players come into the NHL and dominate the face-off circle. So
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, surprisingly,
yeah,
Logan Cooley's above 50%, but you look at Connor Bedard
really,
is at
that's impressive.
35%. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
you
more
look
expected.
Bedard for 35% is right about where you'd expect a draft your player to be. I mean, Cooley's got a year of
Yeah,
experience and all that, but even then, like
it's
52% is very
impressive.
impressive. Exactly. Yeah.
Couple
So
games, small sample, but still, it's good.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see Leo Carlsson develop into that bona fide first line center because with a player of his profile, the way that he plays, I feel like faceoffs are going to play a massive role in his ability to be impactful as a center, right? I mean, he's the type of player who, at the peak of his career, is going to be trusted as a two-way forward. So
Oh yeah,
a big part of that is being trusted on major faceoffs in the defensive zone in the last minute of the game. But like you said, it usually takes a bit of time to kind of get into that groove. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Leo Carlsson become a one of the best faceoff takers in the league by the time he's developed fully. It's just that right now, he's
he's
definitely
not
not
quite there
that.
yet.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'll see how that kind of develops for him. But he's off to a fantastic start. That wraps things up for Leo Carlsson in our second segment. Now we'll give you some updates on 2024 NHL Draft eligibles: Artyom Levshunov out of the NCAA and Maxim Massé out of the QMJHL. Right after these messages here at Locked On NHL Prospects.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your car, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, you're guaranteed to fit your part on any car every single time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
All right, so to end things off, we'll talk about 2024 NHL draft eligibles that we've watched recently. I watched a game of Maxim Massé from a couple days ago, so we can talk about that. And Sebastian knows Artyom Levshunov fairly well. I've had a couple viewings of him, but let's start with Levshunov because he's most likely to go in the top 10 out of these two guys for sure.
Yeah.
Let's start off here. I mean, the viewings have been on and off, haven't they? I mean, I feel like every time one of our team scouts Artyom Levshunov would come away with different impressions of him. So give me your take on him, and I'll kind of talk it through as well, what I've seen from him and what I've liked. But yeah, what have you seen from him recently that you really like, and what are the things you think he needs to work on for sure in order to become that bona fide top 10 option?
Yeah, he's been a fascinating prospect so far. I was not overly impressed with his D-1 tape in the USHL, but I've been digging slowly into his NCAA tape, where he's been tasked with massive minutes as a freshman. He's playing like 23 to 26 minutes a night
Yeah.
with Michigan State University, and he is at a point of game at the moment. He has 3 goals and 6 points in 6 games, and he has been their go-to guy at the blue line. That said, what I've seen so far hasn't screamed top 10 to me. He has good edge work. He's quite fluid in his movements. However, he has a really stiff upper body, which I think really limits his mobility. He has a bit of a hunch posture, and again, that upper body really does not swivel much at all. It really stays rigid, and it means that he really struggles to be deceptive with the puck on the stick and to fake options, to go fake one way before going the other. Those sudden movements don't come easily because he's shifting his entire body weight as one uniform weight rather than swiveling through his motions and being able to use all of his mobility and all of his joints to kind of like move around the ice. And I think that that's kind of limited him a fair amount in terms of what I would project as hopefully a puck moving defenseman at the NHL level. Makes that a little bit more of a difficult projection in my eyes, because he's a pretty strong passer, but with the puck on his stick, like the handling skill is fine, but like mechanically he handles a puck decently well. But because of that lack of mobility, he's not really able to do too much with that. And inside the offensive zone, he does activate routinely and likes to go up the hash marks. He's pretty trigger happy. He loves to shoot the puck. I would say probably to a fault at this point in time. He can look off passing options to just take a big slap shot from the blue line that might not make its way through the net in the end. But still, defensively, this is a very intelligent player. I think instinctually he is very, very, very good. His first instinct, whether he has the puck or not, is often the right one. I think that he gravitates to the right positions on the ice when it comes to making split-second decisions of whether or not to intervene and whether or not to pinch or whether or not to be aggressive at the offensive blue line, for instance. He makes the right call 80 to 90% of the time, and that's been great to see. That said, I do think that there's a divergence between how smart he is instinctively and how smart he is in terms of processing the game and making calculated decisions actively rather than just those gut instincts. And I think that's where there's more room to work with Levshunov. I think that he's going to have to work on being able to make creative decisions while being pressured. I think that he needs to consistently have his B and C options in the back of his mind when he has the puck on his stick. That way, when he is pressured, there's less of a deer in the headlights aspect. There's less of a panic and dump in the puck, and there's more of just a simple play to his defensive teammate or to a forward who's open as an outlet option, or just being a bit more aware while he has the puck. I think would go a long way to kind of alleviate those processing speed decisions that at this point in time in the NCAA are still kind of a work in progress with him with the puck on his stick. But still, as a whole, I think this is a very interesting prospect. You don't often really see freshman defensemen playing 25 minutes a night in the NCAA, let alone when they're putting up a point a game in that stretch. So to start the season, he's been impressive from the stat line. And in terms of the viewings, I definitely think there are things to work on here. And I don't quite see him as a top 10 or 15 guy as of yet. But there is definitely a lot of room to work with there. And he could definitely project as a top 15 talent when the year is over. I just would need to see some quite specific progression in how he approaches the game.
For sure. I mean, when you look at a guy like Artyom Levshunov, you're looking at a player who almost definitely has kind of above par kind of anticipation elements. He understands his options very well. He just tends to default to his first one a lot.
Yeah.
He doesn't he's good at knowing what the B and C options are and you can see him scan and evaluate and take that in. But he so rarely identifies when his first option isn't working in order to hit
Exactly.
those second
Yeah.
and third options. So I feel like once that's developed, once that's acquired, I mean, the mobility in and of itself, if you look at it as work in a vacuum, it's really good. If you look at his defensive shutdown ability, it's really good as well. I've been fairly impressed with the views I've gotten from him regarding his ability to, especially defend a rush, especially kind of angle players
Yeah.
off to the side and
Yeah.
make life difficult in transition for his opponents.
For sure.
But yeah, there are some small details, the small elements to work on that you don't see, for example, with Sam Dickinson or Zane Perek or, some of the guys that we both have in our tentative top 10 as kind of locks at this point. But yeah, I mean, moving on to Maxim Massé, who is playing with the Chicoutimi Saguenay in the QMJHL, a program that doesn't necessarily have the highest level of kind of surrounding talent. Massé was fairly good, but there are some major concerns in his game that make me think that we're looking more at a second rounder than a first rounder in this case. He's a very powerful player with a really powerful stride. He's smart on the forecheck and his application of pressure. He's got a lot of intensity to his game, and he's really good at kind of using look-offs on his playmaking in order to fake like he's going to go and pass one way and then finding another passing lane. But that's so weird that his playmaking is so good because I maybe saw him scan the ice 3 times in that whole game. That combination just doesn't make sense to me. Usually, a player who's a good playmaker is constantly scanning, constantly taking in his surroundings. I generally felt like maybe he had like a neck injury because he generally did not look over his shoulder like more than twice in that whole game. Um, it's so weird because that's such an important element of not only playmaking but overall just being an impactful forward and playing the style that he plays. Like understanding where your next play is before you get the puck is essential. And we talk about that when we did our episode on Yuri Slavkovsky's progress. It's so important to be able to know what your next play is before you get the puck. Massé rarely does. He's really good at improvising. He's really good at kind of figuring out what his next play is on the fly, but he would be so much more of an impactful player if he just took a moment to scan the ice and then figured out what his next play was before even getting to the puck. But there are some small details that are pretty impressive. Like I said, he's fairly powerful and he uses it well.
Yeah.
He's able to spin off pressure. I'd love to see him use the cutback a bit more to create more space in the offensive zone. He tends to force play down the boards as much as possible when he has the puck along the boards, but just using a cutback to cut backwards instead of forward, in order to just open up more space to create a lateral pass to a teammate in the offensive zone, for example, either one of his wingers on the other side or his defenseman streaking in, activating. I think that would benefit him a lot. And obviously, I mean, you're not going to get a full high end defensive player out of Massé, but he's decent enough that he can kind of figure it out. So overall, other than his playmaking, I mean, his shot's decent, but I don't see much stick handling ability. He's got some weaknesses there. So there are weaknesses in his offensive game. There are weaknesses in his defensive game, and overall in his processing and abilities. His mental attributes, there are some issues as well. So there are some concerns in kind of every area of the game, but he has surrounding skill that compensates for it. So he's still got overall a profile that would put in a second round. But there are too many concerns in his game to kind of considering a top a first round player. Just simply and it's so frustrating because with Massé, I was really hoping that there would be a first rounder there because other than him, I don't see anyone out of the QMJHL that's worth a
Not
first
really.
rounder. Again, like it's not the
Yeah.
it's not the first time, and the quality in the queue has dropped a lot. So that's a bit
For sure.
concerning.
Yeah, and one thing with Massé that I found interesting too is that similarly to he kind of reminds me a lot of last year's top QMJHL player in Ethan Gauthier, just with a lot less situational awareness.
Mhm.
But in terms of the power, the hard skill elements, and playing a hard skill game effectively in the queue is already pretty impressive too. So there's a
Yeah,
couple elements there that remind me of Gauthier, but as you said with the scanning habits, they're not
there's
exactly on par with Gauthier last
yeah.
year.
Gautier's whole thing is how translatable his game is.
Exactly.
And that's just not the case for me so far with Massé, which is why I was so high on Gauthier, and so far I'm not really high on Massé. It's just that fundamental difference between those two. I still have yet to see some habits in Massé's game that really scream NHL, whereas that's all Ethan Gauthier was. It's
Yeah.
just NHL habits here, 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 here. It was just very impressive to watch him go about it last year. But that wraps things up for today's episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They got all your news and updates about what's going on in sports. And make sure to tune in for our next episode as we continue our prospects coverage, including talking about Joshua Roy, Yuri Kulik in the AHL, a KHL program that's working really well with young players, and an update on Lane Hutzer's brother, Cole Hudson. That's coming up in tomorrow's episode. This has been Hadi Kalakash with Sebastian High, and we hope you tune in next time.